It takes one step at a time to lead many communities, including Beloit, towards a future built on clean and sustainable energy. With concerns of climate change worldwide, the Gateway to Wisconsin builds an action plan to fight it. Wednesday evening, the city welcomed community members to view and provide feedback on the preliminary climate action plans. WYFR reporter Alyssa Kelly attended that meeting, where leaders and community members shared visions for Beloit's climate future.
Sydney, Beloit's climate action plan is anticipated to address mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation looks at reducing climate change, while adaptation looks at reducing vulnerability to climate change impacts.
Implementing a climate action plan, this is not a plan that just happens overnight.
And right now, Beloit is in stage 1 of its climate action plan, with an established end goal of achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2040.
They issued a request for proposals.
Roughly a year ago, the city of Beloit got into contact with Pale Blue Dot LLC. That organization then became the city's climate action plan consultant to help guide the city towards its established goal.
The climate action plan, what we can say for sure is that it's going to help provide some guidance for city actions that the city can do on its properties, on its fleets, etc.
Ted Redmond, the principal of Pale Blue Dot LLC, says its team will have a range of potential actions that the city can do to improve its sustainability.
The goals and actions will address a wide range of sectors, as we call it.
Those sectors include buildings and energy, transportation, solid waste, green space, health and safety considerations, and more.
It's a very wide-ranging plan that will span over the next 10 years.
Wednesday evening, some of those preliminary plans were posted for residents to view and add suggestions. Redmond explains if the city follows some of the preliminary thoughts, it can reduce citywide GHG emissions by 39% below 2023 levels by 2033.
This plan will help us identify ways to meet that climate goal that we have as a city.
The planning process of the climate action plan will run through the end of the year. Around that time, the team will have developed a complete draft plan to pitch to City Council.
Thank you, Alyssa. And for residents who are unable to make it to tonight's meeting, another one will take place next week, August 7th, where they can share ideas and hopes for a more sustainable Beloit.